Well, the Saints talked a lot about dealing with adversity following their week 3 loss to the Eagles, which was pretty heartbreaking in itself. Now they're going to have a lot more to have to deal with going to a very important road game against the Falcons in week 4. Hi, guys. I'm John Hendricks from Second and Saints, obviously Saints News Network as well on Sports Illustrated. Ross Jackson, normally my co-host, but we're just doing some solo video for this particular breakdown. Erik McCoy, set to miss 6 to 8 weeks, according to reports, something we also have confirmed as well. It's a groin injury. He's going to have surgery on it. So the time frame, really, let's start with that. If it is the 6 to 8 week time frame, you probably are eyeing that week 11 matchup against the Browns. That's November 17th in that time frame. But the Saints do have a bye week right after that, week 12. So I would think more to that week 13 matchup against the Rams at home on December 1st. That's probably the time frame I'd be looking at, because there's really probably not a need to rush him back if you're going into bye week. Let him have that extra week. But of course, depends on how the surgery goes, depends on how the rehab goes, depends on how his body responds. But really disappointing. Obviously, he only played 3 snaps against the Eagles. And then you saw what happened after that. I mean, it was a tough outing for the Saints. And all along, we've talked about this offensive line. It doesn't work. Like, this Kubiak system doesn't work unless you have the offensive line. And buddy, it showed against Philadelphia, right? You look at the film, it was hard rewatch. Obviously, there's a lot of things that they couldn't do. And now it's going to be even more challenging. And Erik McCoy is obviously more than just a center. He's very underappreciated. He's an all-pro. He's a guy that, is one of one. He's practically irreplaceable, right? And so now the Saints have to find a way, especially on a week where now you're going to Atlanta, and then you got Kansas City on Monday Night Football. Then you got Tampa, and then a short week against the Broncos. So this is, the season doesn't stop just because you have an injury. And so now what they did in the game is they put Lucas Patrick there and other options that might exist. You could potentially move Cesar Ruiz over to center, something that obviously he dealt with in college. You put Shane Lemieux. Erik McCoy is going to go to IR. There's no reason why he shouldn't go to injured reserve. And so you're going to free up a roster spot. Shane Lemieux is a guy on the practice squad. He got some work at center. Ross pointed out on our post-game show that he had a few struggles in training camp with some high errant snaps, but that could be a direction they go if they don't want to put Lucas Patrick there or put Cesar Ruiz. And, I think another thing to think about, and again, kudos to Ross. He brought this up in our show too, is the fact that this team hasn't really found a real definitive answer at the backup center spot. But something Jim Nagy, Reese Senior Bowl, pointed out that Nick Saldivari, he thought he would project more as a center on this level. And so I'd be fascinated to see if he gets any type of interior work. And there's a lot that goes into the center position, whether you're calling out protections, audibles, pointing out Mike, all these different things that, a center is responsible for. And so the Saints have a few different options to look at. And so if they put Patrick there, do they keep, Oli Udoh there at left guard? Do they put Landon Young there at left guard? Do they put Nick Saldivari there at left guard? And so now the puzzle pieces, it's always been a matter of when and not if. And that's something we've covered plenty on Second and Saints and have wrote about as well, is that, the days of an offensive line going the distance just don't happen anymore. And so now the Saints, they have to press on, right? They're 2-1. Now they're having to deal with the adversity. They got a divisional opponent. They got to figure out a way. Could look to the free agent market. That's obviously a possibility. You have somebody out there, and I don't know if there's necessarily somebody on the street that's going to walk in day one and be like, whew, fixes all our problems. That's kind of a rarity, but you also have the option to look at some other people's practice squads. You could poach them off there. If you sign somebody off the practice squad, they're there for a minimum of 3 games that they're going to be on the roster. And so that's another avenue. But look, McCoy is just not one that you just say, well, we're going to be okay and we're going to replace. Like, I get it. You're going to speak and do all the speak talk and say all the things, but Erik McCoy is not a guy that is just easily replaceable. And so now the attention turns to, how does this offensive line look, right? And what does the success or non-success look like, right? Because when you look at that Eagles game, they had 98 yards of offense going into the final quarter. That just doesn't cut it, right? And now you got a Falcons defense who's pretty hungry and has got some talent on them, and you got to be able to move the ball. And I get it. They didn't have Taysom Hill either, but even if you just get Taysom Hill in the equation and you don't have Erik McCoy, that still poses a problem. And so Saints are just going to have to find a way. I'm going to be fascinated to see how they tackle this. I don't expect them to tip their hand, really. I expect them to be really active in shopping or figuring out this decision. And again, you're going to see where this offensive line depth is going to be at. And that's something that we were pretty concerned in going into this season as it is. But, it's unfortunate. Erik McCoy's a fantastic dude in the locker room. He's just so much positive influence and just a joy to talk to. And you hate to see that for any player, let alone one of the Saints players. But Saints just simply have to press on, but they're going to have to do it for at least 6 to 8 weeks without Erik McCoy. And I expect them again to go to injured reserve. They're going to have to find a way. Be sure to stick with Second and Saints for more Saints coverage. We'll be doing more of these types of things to break down some of the obviously ins and outs of what's going on with the team and such, something that you guys had voted on. But don't forget to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But on behalf of Ross Jackson, who's not here, I'm John Hendricks signing out for another episode of Second Saints. Thank you so much for tuning in.